She was just another waitress, carrying trays in a crowded restaurant, unnoticed by most, until one powerful man walked in. What began as a routine shift turned into a moment that would shake the entire room. A signature on a piece of paper, a trembling hand, and a billionaire whose world suddenly shattered. This wasn't just about a name. It was about a hidden truth, a painful history, and a silence that could no longer last. What was written on that page, and why did it leave everyone breathless? For most people, she was invisible, just a young black woman in a crisp apron, weaving between tables with a practiced smile. Her name was Maya. To the customers, she was the waitress who refilled their glasses, delivered their meals, and nodded politely at their demands. But behind that routine was a daughter carrying the weight of her mother's sacrifices, and a quiet pride in knowing she came from strength. This restaurant had become her second home. The clatter of plates and hum of conversation, a rhythm she could almost predict. On the surface, it was just another shift. Yet beneath the noise and laughter, something was waiting. Something that would turn this ordinary night into a revelation no one could ignore. And Maya, she was standing right at the center of it. The evening rush had just settled when the restaurant doors swung open. A man walked in, and every head seemed to turn. Tall, polished, carrying the weight of power in the way he moved. He was no ordinary customer. This was Alexander Cole, billionaire CEO, the kind of man whose presence made managers scramble and staff whisper. For Maya, it was just another table to serve, or so she thought. She approached with her usual calm, her tray balanced and her voice steady. But as she placed his drink down, her eyes caught something unusual. On the corner of his leather folder lay a stack of papers, business documents signed with neat, deliberate strokes. She froze for a split second. That signature, it wasn't just familiar. It was identical to the one she had grown up seeing on crumpled papers hidden in her mother's dresser. The same loops, the same force in every line. Her mother's name, Maya's breath quickened. She wanted to shake it off, to believe her eyes were playing tricks under the dim restaurant lights. But the truth pressed heavier with each passing second. Memories flashed, her mother working endless shifts, her mother warning her never to ask questions about the past. And now here it was, laid bare on the table of the most powerful man in the room. Still, she stayed silent. She poured water, cleared plates, all while her chest tightened with a storm of questions. Who was this man? Why did he have her mother's signature on his contracts? And what secret had been buried deep enough to cross paths like this? The night moved forward, each second stretching painfully. Maya found herself glancing at the papers again and again until the risk of looking away felt greater than the risk of being caught. Her hands trembled as she reached for another empty glass. She could feel it. The moment of collision was coming. Alexander glanced up at her once, his expression unreadable, a faint smile that didn't reach his eyes. It was the kind of look that made her skin prickle, the kind that told her he was used to being in control, used to people lowering their gaze. But Maya didn't. She held his stare for a second too long, long enough for him to notice. And in that charged silence, something shifted. He straightened in his seat. His hand moved toward the papers, sliding them back into the folder as if guarding them. The air thickened, heavy with an unspoken recognition neither was ready to name. Maya's heart pounded. Should she speak? Should she confront him here, in front of everyone? Or stay silent, protect the fragile world she and her mother had built? The room carried on around her, laughter, clinking glasses, the hum of an ordinary evening. But Maya knew this wasn't ordinary anymore. Every step she took brought her closer to the truth, and closer to a danger she couldn't yet measure. Because when she finally opened her mouth, nothing about her life, or his, would remain the same. The moment came without warning. Maya's hands trembled as she set down another glass, her voice catching before the words even left her lips. Then, louder than she intended, it slipped out. "Sir, that's my mother's signature." The restaurant froze. Forks paused mid-air. Conversations died mid-sentence. Alexander's head snapped up, his piercing gaze locking onto hers. For the first time, the mask of calm authority slipped, his hand tightening around the glass until it slipped and shattered against the floor. The sound echoed like a gunshot in the stunned silence. Whispers rippled through the room, curious eyes darting between the waitress and the billionaire. But for Maya, the crowd had vanished. It was just him, the man with her mother's name etched across his papers, and the truth that hung heavy between them. He rose slowly, towering over her, his voice low and sharp. "Do you know what you're saying?" His tone wasn't just disbelief, it was warning, the kind of warning meant to silence. But Maya couldn't stop now. Her chest heaved, her voice breaking but steady. "That's my mother's handwriting. I've seen it all my life." "Why do you have it?" For a heartbeat, Alexander faltered. His jaw clenched, his eyes darted toward the staring crowd, then back to her. A flush of anger, or was it fear, spread across his face. The weight of power pressed down on her, the kind that crushed anyone who dared to question it. Yet she stood, trembling but unbroken. The room seemed to hold its breath, waiting for his next move. Would he deny it? Would he unleash his influence to bury her words, just as truths like this had been buried before? Or would the secret that bound them both finally be forced into the light? The shards of glass glittered at their feet, a silent reminder that something fragile had already shattered, and nothing would ever be the same again. The silence didn't last forever. Managers rushed in, staff whispered nervously, and Alexander reclaimed his composure with the practiced ease of a man used to controlling narratives. He dismissed the crowd with a wave, muttered something about confusion, and left the restaurant as though nothing had happened. But for Maya, everything had changed. She stood among the broken glass, her hands still trembling, knowing the truth had slipped out into the open. No apology came. No explanation followed. What lingered instead was a weight, the knowledge that power has always had the privilege of silence, while voices like hers are left to fight for air. That night, Maya walked home replaying the moment again and again. Her courage hadn't shattered the system, but it had cracked the silence. She had spoken her truth in the face of someone who had every reason to erase it. And in that small defiance lived something powerful, proof that silence doesn't have to win. Because this story wasn't just about Maya. It was about every daughter who inherits unanswered questions. Every mother whose sacrifices are buried under someone else's wealth. Every person told to stay quiet when the truth feels too dangerous to name. We are left with a question that still echoes long after the glass has been swept away. How many more voices will be silenced before the world starts to listen? And when that moment comes, will we have the courage to speak like Maya did? Now I turn to you. What would you have done in Maya's place? Share your thoughts below, because your voice might be the one that keeps this story alive.